Alright. According to this clock, we're a minute early, but since we have recording started and we have commissioners and guests here, we will commence. This is the regular board meeting, January 23rd, 2023, of the Board of the Park District Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District here in Lake County, Illinois. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Lane. Here. Commissioner Raymore.
Here.
Commissioner Reader. Here. Commissioner Walsh. Here. Commissioner Weber. And President Dillon.
Here. Before I ask for the approval of the agenda, I do want to make a note. The agenda that was posted and the one that everyone has received is the agenda that we are going to be proceeding from this evening. The agenda that is here and available for anyone who is here physically has a addition in it, and which is the addition that I'm going to ask someone please to make. The original agenda that was posted that everyone has in front of them does not have the addition of our standing committee of the golf committee. And so before we go ahead, I'll ask someone please if we could move to add that for our agenda for this evening. So moved. Amended? Amend the agenda? Oh, to amend the agenda.
Approve the agenda as amended.
Oh, approve the amendment. Okay, excuse me. So first up, can I ask for a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Oh, excuse me, roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh. Yes. President Dillon.
Yes. And then may I ask for a motion to amend our agenda to add the golf committee?
I'll move that again.
Thank you. Second, please?
Second.
Okay, roll call, motion.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Yes. Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
President Dillon.
Yes. We now have the statement of visitors. This is the opportunity for guests who are with us, either in person or on Zoom, to be able to have an opportunity to address the board on any subject matter. 3-minute limit, please, per statement to be made. First one, did you pick someone here this evening?
Thank you. Getting everything in 3 minutes, you guys. No speed. All right, good evening. After having conversations this weekend, and this has to do with item G in the new business. After having conversations this weekend with 135 active Park District participants, all 135 residents signed this petition. We, the undersigned residents, request that the board vote to change Park District hours of operations back pre-COVID hours starting February 1st. We, the undersigned residents, do not want a key fob on our community gym door. The overall community sentiment expressed was encourage more of us to come in, don't lock us out. In the original board packet online, additional expense estimates are confusing. 7 days should already include Saturdays and Sundays. However, both estimates given are based off an $18 an hour rate. So additional expense for going back to pre-COVID hours for February would be $1,728 for 3 employees to do a closing, or $1,152 if Perderma recommendations were to follow only 2 employees. This minimal expense would allow for maximum use by our community for open gym by everyone, especially the 172 Lake Bluff families who pay to participate in the great basketball program, which delivers $65,000 in revenue during the same winter hours, not to mention the additional taxes they already pay. In addition, it will free up additional gym time for pickleball players. Remember, pickleball is the fastest growing program the Park District currently offers. Staffing has been brought up as an impediment to this change. However, just this weekend, by talking with people in the fitness center, a Lake Bluff High School student wanted a job. He lit up when he heard he could get a $100 referral reward for getting his friends to work too. If we use word of mouth in our recent full-time HR investment, success is within our reach. Bottom line, if there's a will, there's a way. So please, ask yourself these questions on behalf of our community tonight. Why would we not go back to pre-COVID hours of operating, freeing up additional use for the gym and fitness, especially during winter hours when the highest demand of resident usage for this community asset? Why would we lock parents and children out of their gym with a fob key system, creating a logistical nightmare at an expense of $25,000, plus spend an additional $48,000 for cameras? What non-manageable issue are we over-engineering a solution to? In closing, the community clearly believes going back to pre-COVID hours is overdue. It makes common sense, especially given the residents' demand for gym time during peak winter months. It's non-burdening financially and supports those who want to participate in activities that promote a community. Totally in line with the board's vision. So tonight, community asks commissioners to vote to restore facility hours back to pre-COVID hours operating starting February 1st. Community also asks not to spend the $25,000 for a fob, locking them out of the gym, or 48 cameras. We ask please continue to embrace the gym and fitness like the residents and creatively manage the usage of this great asset for the benefit of the entire community to its fullest extent. Again, the community is eager to help you in this endeavor, so just tell us what we can do to assist and we'll be more than happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak?
There are no comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go on to our verbal communications. We'll start off with a report from staff.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to, with the staff, put a lot of our information into the reports that are in the packet. I did want to mention that this month we do have a 10-year anniversary for an employee, and that's Marsha. So that's, let's hear it for Marsha. Still having fun, Marsha?
Oh, yeah. Gets better every day.
We have Nikki that works at the front desk, who is also celebrating 9 years this year. And then we have some other short, those are a couple of longer term employees, so just wanted to note that quickly. And I think that's really all I had this evening, other than what's in the report, unless there's any questions. Is there anything else that I'm going to bring up at this time?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So in the gymnastics classes, there's 47 kids on the wait list. Is there anything we can do with those kids?
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, Kelly Loja has shrunk her hours down. She really kind of wants to go away from doing gymnastics altogether, starting in May. She's met with Director Bueller and myself. She just says, you know, as she's getting older, it's getting harder for her to do the classes. It's a lot on her body. She's come up with some other ideas and stuff, and she's really dedicated, but she's got a lot of other things going on in her personal life. She's a grandmother now too, as well as taking care of, I think she has 2 properties outside of her own private, her own home that she takes care of. We've looked for other staff, to try to fill that gap. Brittany, our dance coordinator, she started teaching tumbling classes. And so that's filled up, but that's at its capacity, and she only can work so many hours. So as a part-time staff, you can't go beyond a threshold of hours, then you become a full-time employee. So Brittany's already stretched her time, to spend. Most of it's at dance, especially this time of year.
So Brittany hires a lot of times high school girls to teach some of her dance classes. Could Kelly look at doing that? The gymnastics team at the high school finishes up in a couple of weeks. So there's some, talented, gymnastics girls that could possibly, help out, and I know other, area schools obviously do too, because their winter season is over.
We certainly can look into that. That's a really great suggestion. The time frame Kelly says that's prime is for these, little kids with the parents, the moms that are at home. That's why that list is so big. That's that age group. So hiring a high school, we wouldn't be able to do that during that time frame. But I'll go back and check with her and look into the high school kids with gymnastics out, after school and see if that's a fit.
Also, if it's the baby gyms, I think you could bring in anybody. They're not, 2-year-olds aren't learning back handsprings. I don't think you need someone to really good spot or anything. So I would think you could bring in a preschool teacher or, someone with those kind of skills for the baby gyms.
Yeah, we try to
One of the things she was saying is, even with the younger class, it's really hands-on, where she is literally trying to, as spotting them, but hold them and teaching those, even the basic, backwalk over, somersaults and things like that they're working on. So she was saying that just physically is kind of hard on her. And she also felt that, it might be more appropriate for a gymnastics studio than for us to be, offering that class. So I think we've just met recently and need to look at a lot of different possibilities. She actually has a lot of ideas as well. So she wants to stay involved with the park district and keep working, which we're excited about. A lot of, the parents really love Miss Kelly.
Yeah.
She's very good.
It's a big number, 47. I just saw that and I was like, wow, that's like multiple classes.
It is, it's a very big number. So I think we'll just, we'll take a look at that. We'll come back to the board and we're gonna, Kelly, she sent us some more information over the weekend that we're gonna take a look at that and meet again and keep working on this. But that's why we're at that 47 now. Basically, she's, had to cut back on her hours and it's been a tough position to fill, as far as finding an assistant or.
And she's still teaching 76 children, so it's huge.
Yeah.
It is.
We love Miss Kelly.
Yeah.
We use
Yes,
Miss
we
Kelly.
do.
My kids did Miss Kelly's class.
Yeah, she's very popular and
Yeah,
she's great. Everybody knows her.
Yeah.
Works at all of our events and so she does still want to stay involved with
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. On to, is it an attorney report? You're on the agenda later. Thank you, Scott. Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee. That would be Commissioner Weber, but.
Yeah, we did not meet since the last report was made.
Okay. Parks and Beach Committee, there will be a meeting this Wednesday, the 25th at noon here. There are a number of items that are also on our agenda that will be discussed at that upcoming committee meeting. Facilities and programs.
Yep, we met on the 18th and we reviewed facilities and programs 2022 year-end financial report, the facilities and programs 2023 goals, objectives, and indicators, and facilities improvement plan, and health and fitness strategy plan. We also discussed utilization of the gym, and then hours of operation to be discussed more in detail under business. And the committee will be meeting to further discuss health and fitness strategy plan, the process of utilization of the gym, and facilities improvement plan on February 9th.
Thank you. Friends of the Lake Bluff Parks, I sat in for Nikki at the last meeting. And again, we did have Ellen Bonda and John Hirsch at our last meeting who spoke about hosting a retreat. We're looking for a date that we can sit and start talking about the agenda for that and how that's going to be run. Ellen already sent out some information about looking at current revenue expectations and sources of revenue, comparing the current district here with other communities too. So a lot of good ideas generated and we're looking forward to planning that retreat. Next after that, we'll put the golf committee.
The golf committee met a week and a half ago, and we first reviewed the financial results of the year, which were quite good. Golf Vision revenue was just short of what it was last year, so they made up a lot of ground towards the end of the year due to the bad spring. And Wolf, what's the final income number? 38?
I don't recall that, but I can.
Plus the 40,000.
Yeah, all the 40,000 has been paid, as well as the additional 7,500 in reimbursements for Symmetry gas bills that we paid on their behalf and they reimbursed us.
So it was a good financial year. And then this year, the 10% share of everything of all revenue over $800,000 has gone up to 12%. So that share goes up as well. We discussed the plan for capital investment this year, and staff is going to be meeting with Golf Vision to discuss, and I guess that will be coming up fairly soon, to work out and fix a plan for capital investment this year. We also then we identified 6 areas that we want to look at as a committee to do our main goal of building community involvement in the golf course. And so we split the group into what I'm calling working groups of 2 people each. And we're looking at things like golf operations, areas where we can combine dining with community activities, resident programs at the golf course, coordinating with Blair Park and utilizing the golf course assets with other Blair Park facilities, becoming an Audubon certified or getting recertification as an Audubon certified golf course.
Well, we weren't certified, so we're going to try to be
Okay.
certified.
We tried to be.
So we weren't certified ever.
But Emily has been doing a lot of work on that and looking into Audubon certification for the golf course.
What does that mean?
It's a good question.
What does what mean?
Certified, it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I was collecting the data and to present to the committee, but there's different, I believe there's 6 different areas that we have to reach to become certified as Audubon, and it's basically what chemicals they use, and it's all about environmental sustainability. And so we have to reach these goals that they have set, and so.
Like the Audubon Society?
Yeah. So it's a wildlife haven, and so there's a few courses that, I don't know what the number is that are certified in the nation. There's a few that are certified in Illinois, and so none of the golf vision golf courses are certified, so it would be kind of fun for them to be like the first pilot program. To see how that works and how that works for their business, right? And that was something that was discussed at community forums.
Wonderful.
So our working groups are putting together ideas, and I've been getting a lot of ideas from people on the committee, and we will be following up on those with staff and with golf visions and seeing how we go forward in the proper way. Just to mention, one of the things the Blair Park facilities, for example, we're talking about how we can utilize the grill of the golf course for pool attendees or pickleball, tennis, anyone who's at Blair Park. And, there are obstacles to all this, so we're trying to overcome them. And one thing we've asked John for some help from staff is looking at whether there is some kind of app we can adapt where you can place orders and put your credit card in, so that payment can be done automatically when you pay the order. The order goes through to the grill, how it gets delivered, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that require discussion. But we think this could be, something like that could be a really good thing. If people who are at the pool are playing tennis or pickleball can order their lunch. And it helps us because we get 12% of our revenue from it. So it's a win-win. Golf Vision makes more money, we make more money, and people at other Blair Park facilities can have a lunch. So we're looking at things like that, and like I said, we're collating the ideas now, and then we'll be working with John and staff and Golf Vision to try to implement some of these ideas.
Maybe it's an incentive for them to kind of elevate the food a little bit too. Have you guys discussed that at all?
I'm not on that working group.
And, we're very cognizant of the fact that some of these things may cost money, so as a committee, obviously some of these things, the board is gonna know what's going on regardless, and certainly have the ability to discuss and presumably approve these things. But certainly when it comes to spending money, then the board's gonna get more heavily involved in the discussion, certainly, to see if these are programs that we want to support.
A lot of good ideas coming up. Good. Commissioners' comments? No? Okay. President's report. I mentioned this briefly, but I really in looking at the conference that's coming up from the IEPD, IPRA, Soaring to New Heights, I'm really excited to be able to attend this. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I thank the staff for very graciously including me along with the things that will be happening there. Some of the seminar topics are specifically geared for board members, so I'm going to be participating in leadership for the future, marketing, levies, boardsmanship, renovating or replacing for revenue, and positioning for grants and funding. So I plan to come back with a lot of material and not keep it to myself. So that will be really terrific. The other thing too is it's January, we're starting off in a new year. I'm not really going to do like the state of our district, but I just really wanted to kind of look back at the last year and the last couple of years with all of us serving, because we're all relatively new board members. We've come onto the board from serving in different capacities, but all of us pretty much are serving our first term. And looking back at this and saying the things that we've done with approving $250,000 out of our budget to be able to help revet the beach and help with the stone on there. To be able to get a new golf visions contract that will take us into a new financial direction for the golf course, which is really terrific. That we had a group that raised independently about $125,000, $135,000 to help renovate the golf course that was just entirely independent of the park district, but really helped and supplement to the park district. That we were able to take that grant that was given in 2018 and through COVID and through now steward that grant into what we have now at the top of Sunrise Beach for accessibility, for stairs, finding concrete stairs that we didn't know were going to be there, and having to find a little bit more funds to be able to supplement that. But the very generous donation from the Friends to be able to complete the stairs going down. The fact that, and I know we keep bringing this up, but with feeling like we're on the tail end of COVID, how difficult it was to have meetings during COVID to be able to continue on and to have the staff do all the work that they did to keep the pool open, the beach open, to run programs, because the families in this community wanted to have their kids involved, engaged, to be able to do something because everybody was at home. So I think as a board, not to pat all of us on the back, but a little bit of pat on the back, because we really did some wonderful things. And I think above and beyond that, looking at the budget, looking at how much we have progressed and our comfort margin that we have now that we didn't have before, our bond rating that we have now, those are the kinds of things that really make a difference in a park district. So thank you all for the work that we've done over these last couple of years, and on to 2023 with a very heavy agenda for tonight as well. But I want to say too, though, we all come with our skill sets. I mean, obviously we have jobs that we are performing or we have performed. We have served on different committees and commissions and so forth. But coming onto this board is very different, because unless you come from a background of working with a park district, working with a governmental agency, we all get to kind of shift and change how we think about the meetings acts, about how we think about revenue sources and expenditures and so forth. So a little bit of growing pains, but I think they were good growing pains because we've all acclimated to that. And I think given this foundation, we've got the things ahead. All right, last thing I did want to bring up is that the information came back from Stormwater Management Commission. And it's really a congratulations to them, because in September of 2022, SMC was awarded over $7 million to address the North Chicago storm sewer issue, and their FEMA grant application was interesting from the fact of really focusing on what was happening with the Strawberry condominiums up in North Chicago, what was happening with the businesses along 41, and why they needed those funds to be able to control that stormwater issue. What I took away from the FEMA information, from the grant that they had, was that, again, they had 40 acre-feet of stormwater volume. They identified 2 areas where they could address the stormwater storage, which would have been Great Lakes Naval Base as well as the Lake Bluff Golf Course. And then what they decided to address and to use this $7 million was that use the Great Lake Naval Base in order to address the storage. Let me find my exact wording here. They found that constructing a basin at the Great Lakes Naval Base would not be eligible under FEMA, and constructing a 40 acre-feet of flood storage within the Lake Bluff Golf Course property alone could potentially have an adverse impact to the golf course design and layout.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, could you repeat that a little louder?
Sure, I'm sorry. One was to have a basin at the Naval Base Great Lakes property, but it could now be eligible under the FEMA program requirements in constructing 40 acre-feet of flood storage for the Lake Bluff Golf Course property alone, so potentially have an adverse impact on the golf course design and layout. So what they've done, have a 2-stage channel design for the Skokie River Channel to increase conveyance capacity and to hold the volume of stormwater sufficient to accommodate the storm sewer capacity. They also say in their grant, this, however, still required a minimal amount of flood storage capacity either at the Naval Base or at the Lake Bluff Golf Course. And they said the additional 8 acre-feet of storage was very costly. And without having a firm commitment from the Lake Bluff Park District to utilize their property, they abandoned that option. What they go on further to say is that they talk about the 2-stage channel that's going to be on Buckley Avenue near the railway. There's a restrictor plate to control the rate of the water through the system. And they say that this restrictor plate will ensure that there are not any adverse impacts downstream from the project area. And they say more importantly, by using the restrictor plate, that 8 acre-feet of flood storage capacity was no longer a necessity and significantly reduced the project cost by approximately $1.4 million. So a win-win. So, and they said the annual cost that the Stormwater Commission is going to have for the sewer inspections, the cleaning, and the maintenance for default useful life of 50 years is about $1,500 annual maintenance cost. So, no, I said it was interesting information, and they look, with the $7 million grant, this is really wonderful for SMC. And they have their full design as to how they're going to be working with stormwater storage in North Chicago. Okay.
So then are we still in discussions with SMC in any way? Because I know there was some correspondence about area and that type of things.
And John Bueller and I talked about that again, from an executive director to executive director, just as John Bueller has the communication with North Shore Water Reclamation, with the village through Irwin. It's good to have that open line of communication, but what I'm reading from their FEMA grant is that they have resolved their need for the stormwater storage, including those 8 acre-feet that they thought that they may still need, no longer necessary to be able to solve that.
So does it make sense for John to have one last conversation or whatever it's always, right?
Yeah, always, because again, we're very fortunate in that we don't have a flooding issue, but if everyone, I'm sure, who's within Lake Bluff has received the information from the village about the upcoming meetings that they're going to have and what they have going on with SMC, there's always the need to do that.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's vital, and we hope that John and Bueller and Kurt Wolford are able to continue with good conversations just to make that bridge in the future.
Sorry, something going on out there. Sorry, while you were saying that, there was something screaming out.
Yeah, it means they can-
Didn't sound good, yeah.
It sounded, yeah, like a problem.
Yeah, it did not sound good. Did you hear that?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Like, you heard what I said too?
I think so. Basically, you know, there's a lot, yeah, it would be a good idea to have. Sure. Right, Jennifer?
Just so we can have, like, as.
Yeah. This was the information that they responded to Scott Pluma's request, right, and we have information.
So basically, we're saying it would be a good idea to kind of have a communication between John and their executive director of the system.
Yes, and President Felix has suggested that to me, so I'll reach out to her and keep that line of communication.
Everybody's okay?
Is everything okay?
Yeah, it's somebody that comes in our facility quite a bit. and-
More of like a dementia,
Yeah.
issue, it's not a
Okay.
fire problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on then, we have the consent agenda, which consists of our minutes of December 12th, 2022, from our regular board meeting, the minutes from December 19th, 2022, public hearing, the minutes from December 19th, 2022, with our special board meeting, the invoice schedule for the ACH payments for December of 2022, the invoice schedule for ACH payments for December 9th, 2022 through January 18th, 2023, and purchase cards ratification. Before I ask for a motion to approve, is there any discussion, any questions about any of the items contained within the consent agenda? Overwhelmed you all with that now.
No, I thought I had something, not seen it. I just had a question about the heater repair, multiple units of $9,800.
Was that under the payables?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the HVAC work.
It just seemed like a big number, I was just curious.
So, we should have Micah here. I think Noah can explain that.
Yes, there were several units. There was 2 rooftop units in the gymnasium that had cracked heat exchangers. There was 2 units in the pool wing that had cracked heat exchangers. There's all items that were caught during our annual inspection from Cahill. They come in and do an annual inspection for our properties and different HVAC units. Nothing that anything preventative could have fixed. It was just age of the units. Unfortunately, we're all happened at the same time.
And they were caught at the same time because of the inspection, so that's why it probably seemed a lot to have to do some work on multiple units.
Did you say it was a pool heater too? Repair?
In the locker rooms, the locker rooms.
That's one that runs year round because it helps keep it from freezing.
Yeah, the sprinkler system in that part of this part of the building is a wet system, so the pipes are always full of water, so it has to be, you have to keep heat, otherwise the pipes will freeze first.
Okay. Could I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? So moved.
Second.
Marcia, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Greenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
President Hughes.
Yes. Next, we have Superintendent Will Penninghouse with our unaudited month-to-date, year-to-date financial report.
Good evening, Park District Board of Commissioners, President, Vice President, and Treasurer who's not here. Will Penninghouse, Superintendent of Business Services. I'm happy to report first that the audit has already started. The field audit came out last week on Thursday and finished the field portion of the audit. The remaining portions of the audit should occur over the next few weeks. The one larger outstanding issue before the audit can be completed are all the actuary reports from IMRF. Those usually come around mid-March, sometimes even the first week of April.
but it's important to me and very high on my list of things to do to get the audit done as quickly and as soon as possible. Partly because it's my first one, and also because I wanted to verify that the finances are pretty good, even positive. So in this case, the year-to-date actuals are about 470, like over what was budgeted. Excuse me, I'm getting over the flu from a week and a half ago. And I guess I request that you ask any questions that you have and approve the report.
Well, I had a question. I was a little confused. In the first page, in the text, you've got year-to-date expenses of $5,927,000. But then in the charts, you've got it with the capital and debt and year-to-date expenses, it's about 5.6 million.
I will need to review that. I don't know specifically, other than the year-to-date expenses would be operating and then the capital and debt. I will look at that and get back to you. That is.
Because the first implies a loss for the year.
It does. For the 2022 year-to-date actual?
Yeah.
5.89 in revenue. And the 5.6, almost 3 or something in expenses, including capital. Am I following that correctly? Or is this the memo itself?
Well, the memo has expenses of 5.9 million.
You're saying the chart on page?
5.927, and the chart doesn't have that. The chart has like I said, 5.6 something. So there's just, this is page 25 and 26.
And 26, the actual is 5.894. The 5.6 is budget. Great.
Yeah. 26.
Yeah, here it's 5.6. Right, revenue is 5.
On the chart, but on the text on page 25, year-to-date expenses, you were over 5.9. Then that was an error on my part in transferring it, and I apologize for that. So, I can say, running the report from today, based on already journal entries, the year-to-date activity for revenue was at 6.086, and then the expenses is at 5.803, and that's as of today, because there have been some journal entries in the meantime.
Okay.
And that's why it's unaudited as well, and that's why I'm trying to finish the audit as quickly and as soon as possible.
Good.
Because we've changed the timing and what we're looking at for our roofing project, is that going to have much of an impact on, for example, you have, on page 29, capital expenditures. Because right now we're looking at roofing and we're looking at, rather than doing the roof, we're going to have the engineering study, I should say. So is this going to make a significant impact on what's going to happen?
No, so the reduction in capital expenses for 22 is already reflected in the numbers, and that's been carried over the roofing portion of the project into 23, including the 22 capital budget.
Okay.
And also to repeat, not to repeat, because I haven't said it yet, when I met with the auditors, I discussed with them to make sure that the golf-related revenues are set aside for all political purposes as a restricted fund balance.
Anything else? May I have a motion to accept the financial reports as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call please.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore? Yes. Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
President Taylor?
Yes. Our new business action items. First, we have the public comment, email, and in-person policy. Do you want to walk through this, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll just start, and then if you want to just jump in. It's starting on page, or it's on page 30 in your packet. And so it's something that we discussed at our last meeting. And so basically it was just adding some, parameters for the emails that we receive. Of course, all of the board will still receive all of those emails as you do now, but it's just, regarding the ones that will be put into the packet and published online. And so that I guess the recommendation was to amend the board policy manual, section 3.1, and let's say emails or written comments that are included with the board package shall include the sender's name and file a statement of visitor guidelines. And then the Park District reserves the right to not include emails or comments that violate these guidelines or are deemed inappropriate. So we made it fairly short. I think there's a lot to it, and then Scott's here if there's any additional questions.
We've gone through this so many times.
Can I move to amend the board policy manual as stated on here for the handling of emails?
Second. Marcia, roll call please.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
President Taylor?
Yes. Thank you, everybody. I feel like our policy manual is very tidy at this point. We have to do it again soon. I'm not joking, we have to do it every year, so. All right, next on our agenda is the PAC response to the OMA violation allegations. We have Scott Puma with us tonight to be able to walk us through this. Before we do, I just want to preface our discussion on this. When this item came before the board with alleged OMA allegations back in August of 2022, it goes through a review process, obviously, with the Secretary of State. We included this in our packet tonight, not to draw any attention to the fact that this was brought forward, but really to focus on the fact that we need to be transparent and we need to be accountable. This is a political process. We are a political body. When an allegation is made that we don't follow, or an allegation that perhaps we did not follow an Open Meetings Act, it is with the thought of depriving the public from their ability to participate in decisions that are made for the Park District body, for everybody in the community. So obviously it's something very serious, and it's necessary for us to talk about this and to bring this forward, because the opposite would be that if we didn't, we're shielding it. So that's not the appropriate thing to do. So I'm pleased with the way the process worked through, but I will turn it over to Scott to talk about what has happened, what happened with this allegation and the decision that came forward.
So in your packet is the, the original complaint. There's two issues that were raised. One was that the agenda was not sufficiently descriptive, and the second was that there were discussions by board members outside of the meeting. Those were the specific, about the Golf Vision's contract extension. Those were the specific allegations. We responded to the allegations. I responded on behalf of the Park District with, and coordinated with Director Beeler and President Beeler on a response. And the response was, one, we didn't violate the Open Meetings Act by not listing it appropriately on the agenda. And two, that after checking, there were no inappropriate conversations about the Golf Vision's contract before the approval. The two members of the board can always discuss things outside of a meeting. There were no other meetings that were held during that time. We received confirmation of that, and so that was our position. The finding on the first matter was that the description on the agenda was sufficient. I would acknowledge that it probably could have been a little bit more detailed, but in your packet, you also had, that was posted right behind the agenda, was the entire contract and a memo explaining it. So regardless of what the agenda said, the totality of the circumstances provided all the information that the board was going to discuss that evening in a transparent manner. And the person who complained actually spoke at the meeting and voiced his objection to what was there. So obviously it was enough to apprise the public. The public access counselor didn't get into all of that, but acknowledged that and said there was no violation. So that's one. Second was the alleged violation of commissioners talking outside the meeting. That morphed into a discussion of the original golf committee by the PAC, which was outside of the complaint. There was no allegation, there's no evidence that there were any discussions from the time the Golf Vision contract came up in January to the time that it was approved, that amendment, that there were any improper discussions by commissioners. There's no evidence of that. I have no evidence of it. I don't feel like there was any hiding of anything. As I said, two people can talk. So what it morphed into was, well, the golf committee was mentioned. The golf committee had been disbanded, and the board acknowledged in meeting when it happened that maybe they didn't follow the formalities of as much as they should have and posted meetings. So the board reconstituted that in the interim, I think separate and apart from this whole situation with the PAC, the Open Meetings Act issue, because the Golf Vision contract contemplates or requires this committee. So you got your committee back up. They did say that there was apparently a violation because the committee apparently met and didn't have a meeting or didn't have minutes, etc. Okay, so that's in the past. That board doesn't take any action. It doesn't do anything. It was a recommending committee. This is now done. It was a technical violation. You remedied it. There's no, they're not saying they want more training. They want anybody to come back out and talk to you, that they are making a finding. They didn't issue a binding opinion. There just isn't evidence of anything really bad that happened here. So at this point, it's concluded. So it's over. That's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there are any more follow up with anything, yes.
I just have a procedural question, because I was one of the ones who talked about disbanding that original golf meeting, because we weren't having minutes, we weren't posting the agendas. But the question I have is procedural in that if there was only 2 board members on the committee, and there was one community member who apparently never showed, I don't know, because we don't have any minutes. Is it okay to have a committee like that doesn't have minutes and agendas? We decided it was not the right thing to do. We shut it down. We started another one, but I'm just curious from a legal standpoint.
Yeah. So this is a problem. that this is one of the problems with the Open Meetings Act. There are governmental bodies that have members that have 2-member committees throughout the state of Illinois, 7-member boards that have 2-member committees. So that technically the 2 people on the committee should only talk about the subject matter of the committee in a meeting with an agenda and with minutes and all of that, and in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So,
So we did
we did the right
thing.
thing by disbanding that committee for not following the formality. So, the reality is, and this is something that the PAC hasn't taken up, the Lake County State's Attorney took up years ago and then abandoned it, was, well, these 2 people are on a committee, what do we do about it if they're talking outside of the meeting? Because they realized that it was an unenforceable position to say, well, you're violating the Open Meetings Act. It's really, really hard to slice that so that you're getting a precise ruling. The right answer though is the 2 board members that are on the golf committee shouldn't talk about discussions related to that committee outside of a board meeting.
If I could, yeah, I would like to say something, because my name was mentioned.
It is mentioned.
The Attorney General's report on this.
Yep.
The reason why there were never any agendas or minutes or reports on the golf committee is because the golf committee never met as a committee. We formed this committee, and when it was formed, I think we all looked at it as an informal advisory body, unlike the committee that we have now, which we consider a full-fledged standing committee of the board. The only meetings that Emily and I attended were meetings that John Beaver had called to meet with Golf Vision to discuss operation of the contract and how things were going, and eventually to discuss amending the Golf Vision's agreement. So we never met as a committee. I never called any committee meetings. It is true that, our one citizen member who we were supposed to have fell off the face of the earth, as far as I can tell. But there were simply no meetings. And so discussions between Emily and myself, certainly when we were at the meeting, there were 2 of us, which is within the Open Meetings Act. It's permissible under the Open Meetings Act. It was not a committee meeting. It was a meeting between the Park District staff and Golf Vision with 2 board members in attendance. First, primarily and eventually primarily because Jennifer was president, asked us to do that. We had the blessing of this golf committee structure, but we were not meeting as a golf committee. So I think it needs to be clarified. There were no violations. Any comments that I made about commissioners discussing points, yeah, we talk one-on-one. We do that all the time. Everybody does that. All government organizations do that. And the fact that I didn't specify that these were all one-on-one discussions, to me is I think unfortunately taking it a step further than what we would normally do in the course of the meeting. So I'd just like to clarify that, and I understand that there's probably no reason to go back to the Attorney General to clarify that. That would, nothing personal, cost us legal fees, and accomplish nothing, but I think the point needs to be made.
In my initial response, I did state that that 2 commissioners met with Golf Visions, and that's certainly permissible under the Open Meetings Act, that there isn't a violation there. So that was discussed. I think the finding of the violation was just an acknowledgement of what was in the board meeting minutes, that the golf committee wasn't following formalities. So it wasn't, there's no allegation that there was any improper discussions among commissioners that more than two commissioners talked about a topic, that certainly didn't come up, and he had no evidence of it. He said, well, they must have. And the response was, I checked, and the answer is no. So, and that's pretty darn common, and that's how it goes. You know, two people can talk. So I think you're okay.
And can I just clarify this, because what you just said, Scott, about two people of a committee being a committee with everything else. And just the precision of language, when you, Paul, talked about the golf committee and the fact that people are broken into, they're not really subcommittees, you're just kind of partnering two people together to work on certain projects. And those committee members are able to do that without the necessity of an agenda and so forth. So he has two people who are addressing the food app. Do they need an agenda? Do they need to publish a meeting?
So I can't remember. How many people are on the golf committee at this point?
Yes,
Yes, 2 board members and 3 citizens.
Yeah.
Okay. So if 2 people on the golf committee are talking about and trying to come up with an app, and there's plenty of them for ordering food, that's not a violation. So 2 people can definitely do that.
Okay.
If it's, so 2 people on a 5-member committee can always talk also. But you had a 3-member committee under the original golf committee, that was the problem. I know former Commissioner Mossberger was on that also, but that's kind of where the gray area came in. Now you got 5 folks, 2 people can always talk in a 5-member board. It's an express exception to the Open Meetings Act.
No, now it's a 5-person
Right, so 2 people can always.
Everyone's showing up, no one yet has phoned.
But 2 people on that committee can talk outside the meeting, just like 2 people on the park board can talk outside the meeting. So you can do that. You could have one-on-ones about whatever you want to do, you know, when we do the sand traps, 2 people can meet on that. You don't need to have a subcommittee or call it anything else. 2 members of the golf committee can talk about it.
It sounds like it might have been more appropriate instead of forming a committee. It should have just been, these 2 commissioners, we would like to have them meet with golf bishops.
That would have been.
So the word committee needn't have been in there, which we can apply to future discussions that we'll need to have with other partners that we have, right? So we can say.
You don't need to, right, you don't always need to have a committee. So I think this comes under the Golf Vision contract, that there is supposed to be this golf committee, and I think that was more of a feel-good that actually the Park District recommended when this all started to try and make sure everything was going okay, when it got outsourced. At least that's my recollection. So, but you're exactly right, there's no need to call it a committee to talk to different groups. So, yeah, that's better. That might
So you've got partners working together, you don't have
We don't have subcommittees, and we're not calling it subcommittees, and we don't want it to be subcommittees. It's just 2 people working together on a topic to be more efficient in handling all 6 of these topics.
Is the 2 people okay because
yes,
the Open Meetings Act says 2 people, or is it because it's less than a majority of the committee? You kind of alluded to.
Okay, it's 2 different things. So it's both. 2 people, well, it's the Open Meetings Act and a 5-member board, because 2 is a majority of the quorum of 3. So under the Open Meetings Act, they can't talk, but the Open Meetings Act was amended several years ago to expressly state 2 members of a 5-member board can discuss matters outside of a meeting. So that's where that comes in. It's the 3-member committee with 2 of them talking outside where the real problem comes in.
Okay.
So, and I get your, the frustration picked on, you're called out, and they just kind of went sideways from that, because there's no evidence, and there's nothing that was ever said that there was a violation, and that's, so it's a little galling to me, but the door's shut at this point, it's over, and going back and saying anything is gonna be, it's not gonna go anywhere. And then you get into, well, why are they protesting so much? I basically said that there's a violation, but nothing's gonna happen. So I think we're okay.
And I think the language that's in here about the fact that we took remedial steps to address this and make sure that we are in alignment and in compliance.
Yeah, those are not going to before anyone.
Yeah.
It had already been done, and as much ado about nothing at the end of the day.
No. Thank you very much, Scott, for a very thorough memo and the information on this. We have an ordinance as our next item of business, ordinance 2023A, with a declaration of surplus personal property and the operation for sale, trade-in, or disposal.
So that memo is on page 47, your packet. It's really part of the discussion here for this evening, both C and D on your agenda. So D is the purchase of this Ventrac piece of equipment for park maintenance. And that's replacing these pieces of equipment here that can then be sold on an auction. And, staff would hope to get somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 potentially on auction for these pieces of equipment. However, we wouldn't want to sell the equipment if we're not purchasing that item that's on the agenda. So if you plan on saying no to that, you might want to know before we get there.
What about the ice cream?
So, yes, there's a attachment for the Ventrac. It's it's quite a machine and I'll let Noah talk a little bit more about it. They did test drive in the Waukegan Park District Castle, so they went up and drove it, but it's, the other conversation was the field groomer could potentially replace the Samco, and the youth baseball, Noah's contacted the association, and they verbally said that they may contribute $5,000 towards the purchase of this piece of equipment. So that would help offset that piece of equipment.
Is it really, it's got everything, it sounds like.
It allows us to have some flexibility. There's a multitude of attachments that are available for this piece of equipment. The ones we were purchasing at this time are just the one-for-one replacements for what's on the ordinance to be disposed of. As far as the tractor, the ice groomer, the baseball groomer equipment. But it also allows us for expansion. If we ever needed a stump grinder or a trencher or a blower, or there's probably 40 different attachments that can go on this piece of equipment. So it allows for versatility at a much lower cost than trying to buy each one of those particular pieces of equipment outright. To buy a trencher or to buy a blower or to buy some of these other things would cost much more, whereas the attachment is a much lower price point. It allows for flexibility for one unit to do multiple things.
Remember what the mechanic had estimated this would replace, this is $58,000 for this piece of equipment, but it was replacing.
To purchase, once being disposed of, to purchase it new today would be close to $100,000. If we buy each of these.
How much, I'm sorry?
Almost 100,000, 98 and some change.
That's on page 15 in that memo in the packet.
Is there any conflict? Like, would you ever need the mower and the tractor at the same time, or the mower and the baseball groomer? Like, is that?
That's a really good question. We do not have conflict because the way our schedule works with when we do like baseball fields and when we do some of these other items, we're able to, they won't be needed at the same time.
Okay.
What about the ice groomer? You said that it didn't cover that. So is there a plan to replace that? Have we already replaced it?
So there is a brush attachment that we use for grooming the ice that we do have on our list for a future capital purchase. We're able to get through with this season. Obviously, the weather's been ideal as far as not making ice goes. But that would be future capital improvement that we'd like to add to the list for potentially 2024.
And that would be the same quality of work as what we currently have?
Correct.
And this is new equipment.
Right. Correct. It's purchased through Sourcewell, which is a cooperative purchasing program as well, so that is, it's already been negotiated to the best possible price ahead of time, so there's no haggling that's involved in that, which is nice. We already get the lowest price possible from this vendor.
That's good to know.
What do we anticipate the life of this equipment to be?
Approximately 15 years lifespan on this. Could be longer, obviously with maintenance and, which we do upkeep, but potentially a 15 year.
And is that similar lifespan for like individual equipment?
Correct. Well, depending on usage. Now, obviously, the main unit itself, the tractor portion, we're expecting for a 15-year lifespan. The attachments, those can last longer because they don't necessarily get used all the time. You won't be using the brush on a daily basis that we use for the ice scraper. It's only used in the wintertime, so it's only used for 3 months. So those attachments can last much longer than that, which is a benefit as well. So you only have to, at the end of the day, the 15-year lifespan, you're talking about replacing the main tractor, which is a much lower price point.
So back to the ice, sorry, and I'm not even an ice skater, but if we have, a lot of times our best ice is in November and early December, so if we have a need for it next year, even if it's on next year's budget, we wouldn't get it until 2024. So I just want to make sure that there's a plan to manage the ice, because it is a really cool thing for the kids to do when
We do have a backup plan in place. We have smaller equipment that can be used. It takes more manpower to use like a 36-inch walk behind brush versus a 60-inch. But this provides up to 2 inches to provide.
I figured you did.
I do try to plan ahead.
So I'm sorry, when would we get delivery of this?
As soon as within the month, if it's approved this evening, it could be here relatively quickly.
Oh, wow.
And this is in the budget.
It is budgeted for this year.
It's about $2,000 over budget, but the thing that wasn't factored in was the dealer profit delivery. That was a little over 2,000.
And the baseball payment, right?
So then you would offset that with a baseball payment of 5,000 and then potentially sell 5,000 to 10,000 in equipment.
Right.
So should be in pretty good shape at the end of the day.
And regretfully, I don't see this as enticing. It's like naming the snowplows in Chicago, where we're going to have the grammar school kids make a name for this Ventrac.
We certainly could have a contest to name it, much like we did with the ATV for the beach.
Oh, that's true, we did for the
We did name that, so we could name this piece of equipment or each attachment could get its own name. If we desired to do
Rich on
that.
the same, Jonathan.
Paint the name on the front of it, like the Guardian, like the fire truck.
I'd like to do that if that's okay.
Maybe you just do different.
But it's like Plow McPlow face, and I can't see Ventrac McVen face or something like that.
I think you said that before, that you enjoyed going and visiting with the park district and using, trying it out and sampling, and you had a good time.
We did. I was able to contact one of my peers in Waukegan. They had one in their garage that they used. We talked to their mechanic, we talked to their staff. They fight over it. So, obviously, if they're happy with it, and I talked firsthand, like I said, to all these people, the mechanic was working on it, there were no problems with it. So it was nice to be able to get a demo from somebody else who actually used it in the field.
Sounds very well researched and thought out, thank you.
Thank you.
So I believe then we need to take this as two separate items and two separate motions. The first would be a motion to approve the ordinance of 2023-A with the declaration of the surplus personal property and authorization for sale, trade-in, or disposal for those.
Do you want to do the other one first, just to make sure? Does it matter?
Just looking at the way they got it on the agenda. It was saying, I go, if we don't approve the Ventrac, what are we going to do? But I'll take it this way, in the assumption with the way the conversation's going, and see how we fare. So I'm sorry, motion please with regard to the ordinance.
So,
Second. Roll call?
Commissioner Wingfield?
yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Dillon?
Yes. So now we are out, a mower, a tractor, a groomer for the ice, and a groomer for baseball. Let's go on to the next item. A motion to approve the purchase of Ventrac 4520Z from Burris Equipment in the amount of $58,402.35. So moved.
President Beeler, if I may?
Yes.
Would it be possible to amend the motion to allow Executive Director Beeler to sign for the purchase of the piece of equipment and purchase outright, since
And
we
purchase
have to
outright?
come back to the board for a full signature since it's over his.
Oh, that's true, because it is over our limit. Okay, and so in addition to that, then for Executive Director John Beeler to authorize and sign for the purchase of said Ventrac.
The board authorized me on their behalf to
Authorized to do that.
to sign.
Okay.
So move to the whole thing.
Second to the whole thing.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ringfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Yes. Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Beeler?
Yes. You guys are whole again. All right.
No one been, well, thank you. We're going to be very excited.
Thank you. Yeah, please let us know when it's here, because I think we all now want to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Yes, you should definitely share a picture.
Yeah. Our next item for this evening is to appoint Commissioner Ann Reader as the foundation liaison with the Friends of the Lake Bluff Parks. Nikki has served on this position for some time, and Ann has asked to take her place with Nikki's resignation. Any discussion?
Second.
I said any discussion, but that's okay, we can right to the good stuff. A motion please to approve Commissioner Reader to replace Commissioner Walsh as the trustee and liaison for the Friends of the Lake Bluff Parks Foundation. So moved. And seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Ringfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Beeler?
Yes. Thank you very much, Nikki, for your service on this, and again, looking forward to your
Thank you, Nikki.
that responsibility.
February 13th, next meeting.
Sounds good.
Now we also have a agenda item. We have Sue Raymore as the Lobola liaison. Lobola obviously is not a standing committee of the Park District. They're an independent organization, but they are vital to our workings with what they provide for us in terms of taking care of land within the Park District. As Sue is already on the board for Lobola, having this as part of our commissioners' reports or our reports that we have would benefit, I believe, benefit us, because then we would have updated information regarding what they have planned, if they're successful with grants, and so forth. So it would be nice to get this kind of exchanging information going back and forth.
I'd just like to comment that, my initial concern was I don't want anyone to see conflict of interest. And so I made it quite clear with John and Jennifer that my role is to report. It's not to be the go-between. The business that's currently done now is between Noah and John and Ben and Michelle, who are the land manager and the president. And I see that as continuing. So I know that Ben Miller, who's the president, is working with John and Jennifer right now to schedule time to come do their annual update, like what have we been working on, what have we accomplished, what's happening in 2023, talk about the grants, et cetera. So I see my role as really just confirming that, yeah, we're on board, but the management plan that was presented is still, or here's a change or a difference or something that's relevant. I just want to make that clear so no one thinks there's a conflict.
No, that's a good point, because we have a memorandum of understanding that we execute with Lobola to have this kind of relationship back and forth. That's separate and independent of that, you're a voting board member, but it really is just it's to have information. Any other discussion? May I have a motion to appoint Commissioner Raymore as the Lobola liaison? Second? Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane. Yes. Commissioner Raymore.
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch,
Yes.
President Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, you are our liaison for the moment. All right, we're now at item G with our rec center schedule change. This was an item of discussion with the Parks and, with the Facilities and Programming Committee. And so I started, I believe, with John on this, and we'll try to.
Sure. So that's on page 54 of your packet. And what the discussion with the Facilities Committee and direction that came out of that meeting was to, there was a desire to bring back those original hours of the recreation center. We discussed some of the challenges from, trying to staff that and the cost of staffing that. And so based on, the discussion in that meeting, that the committee made a motion to recommend to the board that we started with the weekends and add that hour back on bringing it from, instead of closing at 4, closing at 5 on Saturday and Sunday. And doing that now and then discussing at the next committee meeting the other days, the weekdays, and, potentially bringing that back and when that would be. So that was the reason for this, for the information that you see there. We looked at some other, just compared to some other, we typically compare to Lake Forest Parks and Rec, is kind of our neighbor, and it's, just a kind of a similar, I guess, operation, but we feel that, from staff, we can staff the weekends. We have 2 shifts on Saturdays and Sundays of staff, so we're just, we can lengthen each one by half hour. We're really not putting a lot more time on, individual employees, and we can cover that. And, right now is kind of the highest demand, these 2 months, January and February are certainly the highest 2 months of use and demand on the gym. And so it makes sense that we could do that comfortably. And then come back and discuss the weekdays at the next committee meeting.
By the next committee meeting, the need will go down. So that would really be just looking at next year, it sounds like. If what I understood was correct, that this need for extended hours is really only during the winter and the basketball, when the basketball committee is going, is that correct?
It's the biggest time. The youth basketballs is Superintendent Lakeman reported, grew from, about 120 to 170 Lake Bluff children in that program. So that meant more practice time, more games. That's just bringing the higher demand right now. And yes, that's done by the end of February.
So do we think about it, if it's possible, because staffing is an issue. I realize it's only a couple weeks away, to maybe extend that for 1 hour during the week, 2 during this high season, and see how that goes, and then evaluate whether we want that to be permanent going forward. I don't know if that's possible. I realize staffing is a huge issue, but it sounds like now is the demand time, and waiting until the end of February to talk about that might be past the point. So we can say no. I just think if we're going to do it, we might want to consider it.
I agree with you, Sue. The demand is now, and so I also wanted to make a motion to amend the recommendation, because there was some, I think we didn't have all this information of the hours at our committee meeting, of knowing like how the different pre-COVID hours, we weren't given this information. So knowing this, I think it's essential for the demand that we've heard from staffing that's necessary. I would like to make a motion to move back to pre-COVID hours.
Well, I'd also like to recognize the petition that was just brought forward as well. So with various committee members requiring powers to go back to pre-COVID levels as well.
Can I ask on the page 55, excuse me, You have a line here that says the additional expense for adding 1 hour for 7 days, the estimate expense is $19,656, and then below that is 1 hour on Saturdays, $5,000. What is that cost broken down to?
So the 19,656 is $54 a day, times 7 days a week, times 52 weeks. It's 19,656. And the 5,616, that's if you just went down to adding additional hours on Saturday and Sunday. So 19,000 is every day. And then at the bottom one, I think I should have explained a little bit, that is separate. It's not in addition to the 19,000. It can just went to weekend hours, that extra.
So, and that's for the year? For the year.
For the entire year.
So do you feel there's a need to have extended hours all year long, or are we really looking at the winter hours and people are needing that gym? I don't have the answer to that question, but.
We're back to pre-COVID operations everywhere else. And I don't know why we wouldn't go back to pre-COVID operations on the rec center.
That's what I'm wondering. Is there a reason why we haven't?
One, staffing is number one, issue. Honestly, we have trouble, the building is open, currently, it's open from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then, the weekend hours, 91 hours a week that, we have to staff, this facility. It's a challenge. As you know, in the world, staffing just about anything is a challenge right now. So it is with other park districts, and many have shortened their hours, and some of those have not gone back to pre-COVID hours, and staffing is one of the biggest challenges. Including, we've had some of our staff has heard about this, talk going on, and they've come back. We've had a couple of high school aged employees, from the fitness, saying that they're not sure if they keep this job, if it's going to be another hour later, because they're coming here after school, and it's already a pretty long day for them. And when they were hired, it was, working till 8. We've had kind of a mixed review with some of our guest services. I'm not saying we couldn't make it work, because we would try if this is what the board decided to do, but it's going to be a challenge. It's already a challenge to cover now. We say we try to cover this with 3 employees. We often don't have 3 employees to cover it with, so we're often doing it with 2, and that's not ideal. We don't have our facility maintenance person right now. We're trying to fill that position, and the problem is, if it's in the evening like this, and you have one guest, service person at the front desk, and then you have a fitness person upstairs, but there's a room set up because it's a rental. Like 2 Saturdays ago when I was in here, there was a 10 a.m. party rental in this room, setting up tables and chairs. And you don't want to take the guest service person away to try to do that. So it's to make it, and we've looked at some of the other facilities, and those staff with even more than that, with 3 or 4, depending on their layout. Our fitness center was on the same level as our front desk. We might be able to cover that with 1 person, but the fact that it's not makes it, difficult to do that. And so, it's, staffing is just, it's very difficult. We're spending a lot more money, advertising and trying to recruit and attract, enough staff, and we're not really full anyway. With some of those, I know ARC has been limited in the past, due to the number of employees that we have. So I do have concerns that, this will be difficult for us to staff safely.
I wonder if you could split it into 2 shifts, because that is an awfully long time for someone that's coming after school, but it might give the opportunity to someone that plays a sport after school to come later. If they could work till 9, it might make it worth their while to come 7 to 9 even, if they did it, 3-4 days a week or something.
Yeah.
So it could be, you could be looking at a new crop of people by keeping it open an hour later as well.
That's a good point. I mean, I know that, our HR, is busy, and doing a lot of, phone screens, advertising everywhere, trying, we're doing Facebook ads now to try to keep it in their feed a little bit longer. Although I understand that's gonna go away, they're gonna stop offering that, but they're, she's doing it through the newsletter and our website and Indeed and, all kinds of, you know, the going to the job fair, the high school, at TLC, you know, wherever, you try to, you know, contact these employees. Most of these employees, you know, are in that $13 to $16 range. And those jobs, you know, you can go to McDonald's and make 16, or Chick-fil-A and make 17, or Costco, you know, all of these different jobs that pay more, in a lot of cases, than what we're offering, so.
And if you're an athlete and you get a free fitness center membership and you could work 3 days a week after your basketball game, you might be enticed to, you know.
We're trying, you know, again, it was mentioned earlier, we're offering that $100 incentive to bring, you know, tell your friends about it, and, you know, and if we hire one of them, you know, so we're definitely trying to, you know, we're doing a lot more recruiting effort. You know, back before COVID, it was more of an employer's market. Now it's an employee's market. I mean, they've had a lot of, you know, the leverage has switched. It's a lot more difficult for employers to, you know, to attract and keep their employees these days, especially, you know, again, in this range, you know, that we're paying. But if it's, you know, the decision board, and if you want to, you know, go in this direction, then we would do what we could to, you know, to staff and make it work, but I think it is going to be a challenge.
I think we have to be, you know, normally, I think we've done a good job in not going for every little expenditure that we could go for and saying, oh, 20,000, who cares, 30,000, who cares, let's do it. And I think our finances are in better shape because of that. But the additional amount of money, I think when we look at the finances for this year, we're really in good shape in terms of our balances, our fund balances and so on. And to me, getting back to pre-COVID hours for the rec center is, you know, if you say, let's pay 20 grand to put up windshields for pickleball, well, that, you know, I have an issue with. But I think getting the rec center back to pre-COVID hours is something, when we look at the budget and look at the finances, I think it's a worthwhile expenditure. It's not a huge amount of money, but even so, I think it's a worthwhile expenditure. If we can do it, you know, it can be the goal, it can be the target. You could start, you can, you know, if you're absolutely unable to staff it, then obviously we have to look at plan B, but.
In having this conversation with Emily after the committee meeting and also with John Beeler, I mean, we're looking at the interplay of 3 different things. First off, obviously, the staffing and the cost for that, the safety issue, and with reference to what we heard before, and speaking with John, we touched on this quite some time ago, that the park district has to go through the same kind of active shooter drills that schools do and so forth. So the safety measures to bring forward are not to keep people, are in essence to keep people out, but to try to bring the park district up to the same kind of safety standards that schools have in terms of the unfortunate events that happen in our world these days with active shooters, with other things as well. So making sure that safety of the staff as well as the attendees is paramount. To have the appropriate amount of staff here and so forth. And the last thing is really the benefit that's going to be there. Because this isn't going to be a fiscal benefit, but if it's going to be a benefit for people to be able to be out, to be able to use the park district, so that everything feels like it's back to normal. That may be the benefit that we have. So if we vote to approve this, but you're not able to get staffing, how do we address that? So we may say, you know, we may vote to go back to pre-COVID hours, but how long will it take to gear up to try to see their staffing?
I think that, you know, the motion should probably say, you know, vote to make a move back to the pre-COVID hours, if that's the preference, and, you know, with the understanding that, you know, until staff can establish schedule employees, we can't schedule the hours, and until we have, and I mean, we'll start working on that right away, but until we can scheduled employees to keep it open, the hour later, then, we wouldn't want to start doing it until we get that secured. And we could meet with staff right away, and of course, we're always recruiting, but.
You mentioned earlier that you could go ahead and start on Saturday.
We would, yes, we could try the Saturdays, and I think Saturdays and Sundays we can do. That's, the weekdays are the bigger challenge because the building's already open 18 hours a day on the weekdays. And that's, longer than like Forest hours, or Park and Rec, fitness center. So I think that, yes, I think we could cover the weekends because that's, that's an 8-hour day. And so then we're adding one more hour. And we can split that between 2 shifts. I think the weeknight is just a bigger challenge, so we would.
If we did open it, I think I'd like to see some data, to see how many people really are going into upstairs and also into the gym. And I know we don't really have the best software system, but I think that would be a goal of mine to say.
Well, actually, we have a really good software system that will allow us to do just like the beach, when you do the beach, and when I do those reports and the board report, that comes right out of our system. Okay. So that was like the best thing we ever changed was that group of, between the village, the beach committee, some of our staff and their trustees, and we all got together, and then that's when staff came up with this new system with the clips, basically you're scanning your pass. So now we're doing it with Open Gym with the passes. So you get a free pass for Open Gym. If you don't have the beach pass already, then you're going to get your beach pass with it. So they come in and they click in. At least it gives us the data when they clicked in. So, or when they scanned in to come in for Open Gym. So we started that process. The memberships for pickleball, same thing. We check them in with the memberships with pickleball. So we have that data of when they come in. So we're going to just, John and I talked about that, Director Bueller and I, making sure that we get people to scan in, because, that's just a routine process. And once you get them in that process, it's great. And then we're able to print utilization reports that'll show which hours they came in. And we drill down by person.
Yeah, the only thing that that is a problem for like the Open Gym basketball or pickleball is that they don't scan out. So we can tell you how many scanned in at 6, and so for pickleball, but they don't stay for the full 2 hours. Who was here in that last hour? All the ones that may have scanned in at 6 or at 7. So we talked about just to kind of augment that, and try to be a little bit more accurate of having staff physically, keep track of who's in, how many are in these programs, in that last hour. So they put together some preliminary information as far as how many are here for your basketball in the last hour. It's X number, of teams, and then some parents, etc. And the same with, just looking at the different uses, so including pickleball. The fitness center, right now it is, again, it's the highest month of the year, so, there are more using it. Definitely, we try to look at the average over, for fitness, we look back like to September 1, and then look back at the summer, because that would really be low numbers. But I think that, that we could provide a little bit better information, whether we're doing institute this tonight or not, we can still, track this a little bit better and provide that, that information.
8 o'clock head count.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the fitness center is the same way, like the Open Gym, like when a user comes in, I could say, because I'm a member that pays to go up there with my family, and when we clock in, we'll clock in at a certain time, but we'll use that facility for sometimes 2 hours. And I know that you can walk around, and there's some people that come in I was here this morning, and I got here around 5:30 and left around 7 something. And so that's a pretty good span of working out. And there's a lot of people that do that. So just because somebody comes in at a certain hour doesn't mean they're not using that facility for more than 1 hour.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I could tell you there was about 8, 9 people that were there when I was working out this morning. And then I saw Mark from Montgomery was working out on the gym. And then I saw Katie downstairs working out at the fitness center. There was a class that was down at the gym. So my point is, that's where the checking in, the utilization is a little off, because you have people that are using the gym, and that's what we want, for a longer period that's kind of showing on that tracking.
Yeah, we did discuss that possibility. We also discussed with the fitness, associates, what are they seeing and tracking that, because if they're instructed that, by a certain time, there's nobody else working out, in the fitness area, to come down and help the guest services. And so that's often happening by 7:45. There's nobody left, in the fitness room. So we were, taking some different pieces of information into account with that. But, yeah, we definitely, aware that we discussed that, some people are working out more than that 1 hour, can just take who, clocked in at 7 o'clock.
Should we do this as two separate motions? Can we move to approve the weekend hours, starting February 1st, and then can we move to go back to COVID hours as soon as, kind of humanly possible, maybe even doing like a test Wednesday night, or, whatever might be the biggest night, getting one night a week in as quick as possible, with the, either current staff or the first people in?
It might be possible on Mondays, due to the staff number. I think we need to ask that person. That is one of our largest nights.
Okay.
Is Monday.
Usually that staff member has told me that they may not be interested in working another hour later, unfortunately, but.
And then we still go back and ask them and seeing, because they're our most experienced person. And Monday nights are our busiest. I'd have to check to see Friday if both those days are, Mondays are a day with no in-house basketball. So, that would also be ideal too, because then you're not doing it on an in-house basketball day, you're doing it on a day where it's open pickleball or open gym. Fridays has that possibility too. We have games, but that starts off the weekend. I gotta remember who works there, but we certainly can go back and ask which day, if there's a staff member.
And then so that person comes at what time and stays till what time would that be then?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, okay.
And they stay it's a 4-hour shift. It would be a 5-hour shift.
Yeah. So you could, if you needed to, break it up into 2.5-hour shifts if you had like a high schooler that was just interested in some amount of money or something too.
Most of the high schoolers are interested in the fitness associate position, not the guest service.
Okay.
We need to handle different things at the guest service desk than as being a fitness associate. It's a higher rate down at the guest service. I don't usually get a high school person applying. If it is, it's a senior. In high school, and doesn't have a lot of, they're not involved in athletics. I think we have one that's a guest service, that's the same.
What's the difference between the guest services and the fitness associate?
So for the associate, just different job responsibilities. The associate does not handle any of the registration. They don't really get involved with ActiveNet. They don't handle shelter reservations, camp registrations, preschool, any of those things. There's extensive training involved with a guest service associate than there is a fitness associate. Fitness associate will check numbers in, handle any situation that's up there. They'll clean equipment, they'll clean the locker rooms, they'll kind of do a once around. They're there for safety reasons, but that's the difference between a fitness associate and a guest associate.
Do we need someone there that has all that knowledge that late at night? Like, are people signing up for programs at 8 a.m.?
That was a great move. That was, I think, when you were on the board, Nikki, and Commissioner Walsh, and when the board wanted to move guest services or keep it open.
For sure,
Yeah, keep it
for sure.
open.
I'm just wondering if we're staying open later, if that person needs to know all that, or if they can just sign people into open gym.
It's extremely helpful. It really is.
Why don't we, authorize staff to move to keep the rec center open at the pre-COVID hours as soon as practical?
Okay. So we need to move, a motion to go back to pre-COVID hours with staffing, implementing those hours as soon as staff is.
Yeah, so we're subject to staff.
Subject to staffing. Okay, well, we'll word this a little bit more artfully.
Yeah, I think our goal is to, do it as soon as possible, because this is when people want to use it, right? This is when the demand is there, and, really, we're giving you a challenge, and we know you can do it. I believe in you.
Is there some way on the website that people could look in to see, is the gym open? So that if we had like 1 day or 2 days, people could say, I want to go to the gym, is it open? It's going to be open at 8 o'clock? So that they don't have to call guest services all the time.
Yeah, just, I printed one off if you'd like to see it for January, because you can see all of the different colors and number of, programs and things that are going on in the gym.
Right, but if you have spotty coverage, and you could open maybe, what we were talking about, maybe Monday or maybe Wednesday, is there some way to notify people on the website so people can look and see?
We'll notify right away, we'll send out notification. Executive Director Beers, I don't know, we gotta talk to all the staff, we can certainly have that, we've already started those conversations. I just don't, I guess, be careful of, the expectation. I think people are gonna expect that, okay, we're gonna open up this, coming Saturday or starting next week, Monday, we have staff. I don't, we will have a really definite answer with current staff as of probably tomorrow, who can work it and who can't. But if we don't have that, it's been a slow process getting applicants. It has been extremely, that's my one thing that if I was a staff, as a staff member, I'm concerned about, is how many applicants we're getting in for all kinds of jobs, and they're not even showing up to interview, which is crazy in my mind. They schedule an interview and they don't even come. So.
Then you have to train them.
I would be happy to fill in that spot if you need somebody. I know when the school was having issues finding teachers, the commissioners came in for the school board and helped out, and I would be happy to help out for that last hour.
There's no app, we don't have any app with, where people can get the hours and programs that are on just within themselves, do we?
No, I mean, you can do that on your phone by going to our website, but there's not an app. That's one of the things that we are meeting with our software rep that we have now to explore that. It's something newer that they have added, and they've been expensive with that, but we're looking into it. Because I know Commissioner Raymore has brought that up before, that, the need for being able to do registration on your phone, which we haven't had. So we're moving in that direction. We were actually looking at different software companies. It's been several months with them, and then found out that, the cost was going to be 17,000 or 18,000 more a year, and it didn't do everything we thought up front that it was going to do. So we're back to working with our software, which would be a more ideal, because it doesn't mean, it means we wouldn't have to retrain the staff on a whole new system. We keep what we have, just upgrade to a better package, and they add the phone app.
Some of the website is a little, awkward.
It is.
Yeah, we're talking
Yeah,
about
especially your phone.
the facilities appropriate committee.
To have an app where you can have that schedule right up,
Yeah.
and you look up and say, oh, there's pickleball.
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Today's schedule, and up to that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And speaking of which, when do we move from winter to spring hours? Is that March, April?
Yeah, I have to go back and look, I think it was March or April. And I'm not sure, Executive Bureau and I talked about, I'm not sure why the fall hours had changed from 7 to 5 and didn't have it still to 6. That just, I don't know, it's just how it was. So that was a little different as well. So I would, if we're moving in the direction to go back to those hours, I would evaluate, I would look at that fall hour. I don't know why we dropped down an hour. I don't know if it had anything to do with school or a discussion that was, this is from previous boards.
And that really looks like it's the only change between fall and,
Yeah, spring and
Yeah.
summer.
in between fall and winter.
Yeah,
Oh, no, Fridays you had an hour earlier. Okay. All right, so it sounds like the motion is to implement pre-COVID hours as listed herein, with winter.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, with winter, spring, and possibly 4 hours, as soon as
Subject to
practicable,
staffing.
subject to staffing.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Motion, please.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Marcia, you look like you're not clear.
Did I do
Maybe second.
I made the motion. Thank you, second.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Creed?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Field?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your work on this and for staff as well. I know that's going to be a challenge to be able to accomplish that, but I think it sounds like as you're able to implement and recruit staff, to add more hours, then we'll just continue to update that on the website and so forth. And report. Resumption of life pre-COVID. Next on our agenda is the intergovernmental facility use agreement between the village and the Lakeville Park District. So we're on page 56 of our packet. Should we do both the facility use agreement as well as the memorandum of understanding together?
No.
Those need to be separate?
Yeah, they include different partners. So the one is just between us and the village, and then the other one includes the Northville Water Reclamation District. So as we're getting our money without stop and we're in here tonight, I think that he could probably explain this just a little bit.
Please.
All right, so I appreciate the, getting things right, and we've already had a discussion, you may not see me for a while, because I think we're wrapping up, so, I will miss you, but, I appreciate the sentiment, and, that bit too normal, but this one, was a bit of work, and staff's been going through it, and the board's been apprised as to where it's been going. We did get some better clarification out of Paderma on this, your insurance risk pool, about the coverage for the tri-party agreement. And we're able to put together kind of a side agreement that gave them some more feeling. That's the second agreement with the village, about the right to use that space. So that gives some coverage triggers in the event that there's a claim. So they wanted you to have the rights over that property ultimately. We now have that right so that you're controlling it. So at the end of the day, when the finger pointing starts, that you will have coverage. So that's what we're looking for here, and we've gotten you to those things. We've also, I think, clarified some things with regard to the village, and I think kind of a belt and suspenders kind of a solution here. It may not have needed it all, but it does get us better for a long time. And as a side, you also got to read the 1969 consent decree about how this all started and how sewage got to come through Lake Bluff. So, that was a treat.
That was a treat to go back in 1969 that Mr. Granis brought that, Mr. Granis Jr., brought that lawsuit against the North Shore Sanitary District. And to think of what our beach would have been like in 1969 with open sewage.
Yes.
So looking through the intergovernmental agreement, some of the interesting points, we do have something on page 57, Article C, that talks about containing and minimizing odors so that the leased property does not emit perceptible odors that are greater or more offensive than such perceptible odors produced prior to the execution of this MOU. We do have a May 24th, 2024 deadline, which is written in here with certain exceptions, obviously, but clearly on page 60, we have that the park district's responsibilities include operating, maintaining, cleaning, and keeping in good repair at our cost and expense, the restroom facilities, the outdoor shower area, and the garbage recycling storage area construed as part of the project, and we shall keep those in a first-class manner. We include the utilities, including but not limited to electric, gas, water, and heat, is our responsibility. And then we also have some disabled parking spaces on the leased property that we have down there as well.
Those two, just to clarify, those are in flip-flop in order. Those, so the facility, as far as the agenda goes, the facility use agreement actually starts on page 64, and the MOU is the one that starts on 56.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Which one did you
I'm sorry,
reference?
I was referencing the MOU, excuse me, I
Okay.
called it the intergovernmental agreement. You're right, John, thank you. On page 64 is the actual facility usage agreement.
Is there an order that you should go?
So actually, I think they're in the right order in the packet, that
Okay.
intergovernmental memorandum of understanding, which is a lot of words, that somebody else wrote. So I think should be first, because that's the one that kind of triggers the second.
Right, because then it's included as an
It's
exhibit
an
A.
exhibit, right, and it's an exhibit to the use agreement.
So the MOU is a brand new document.
Correct.
Okay, and the other intergovernment agreement, is that also a new
Yes.
document? So we didn't have an intergovernment agreement with the village when we had, because we've had the beach for a long time and, yeah, you know.
Yeah, we're not responsible for the yacht club or anything, you know, that
Right.
on the village property, but this is putting bathrooms on there. They want us to cover those bathrooms with insurance, which is reasonable. So then we need to have this other agreement with the village in order to make that MOU work.
Yeah, so this becomes an exhibit to this, and sort of that way.
I would just like to say, I did talk to George Russell about the smell, because I've been down there frequently, and he did remind me that there is a Lake Bluff ordinance, and I would hope the Park District staff would pull up, you know, let the village know when there's violation of that ordinance, but it is hard to measure. It's not like sound in decibels, so, but I'm sure you'll hear it from the community.
I think that was a village initiative for that small from the meeting that we were at, that was something that they were talking about.
It's definitely I've talked about it just about every meeting we've had.
Good, good.
I had one meeting and it was discussed, so, yeah.
Then I will ask for a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement and memorandum of understanding by and among the Village of Lake Bluff with the Lake Bluff Park District and the North Shore Water Reclamation District regarding 503 Sunrise Avenue. Second.
Yes, for the MOU.
MOU.
Fancy restaurant.
That's me, Marcia.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Yes. Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader? Yes. Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Field?
Yes. And after that, we now have the,
It's 64.
right, page 64, a motion to approve the intergovernmental facility usage agreement between the Village of Lake Bluff and the Lake Bluff Park District. So moved. Second.
One thing I forgot to say is the village is expected to pass this tonight too. So this should all be done. This should be closing the door on these issues.
And they've already approved the MOU
Right.
along with North Shore Water Reclamation District. in December.
I should have said that before, so I apologize for that.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hayfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch,
Yes.
President Beaver.
Yes. And last, we do have the NSWRD Basin Project update.
Yes, this is, I'm feeling this will continue to be on our agenda for the next 18 plus months. We did have a pre-construction meeting last week. Noah and I attended. Chair Breezel from the Development Committee was kind enough to let us leave early so that we could attend that meeting. We had representatives from North Shore staff, an engineer, the engineering firm, AECOM, the contractor that's doing the work in the First Village. So the meeting went pretty well. It's, they had some things that, we're concerned about. And one of the first things we talked about, they wanted to move the generator from where it's going to be relocated, it's going to be pushed further back towards the block, but they're going to remove a tree, and make room for that to be relocated during the project. So we wanted to put it on the north side of the building, the north side of the road, the access to the beach. So it's really that kind of the Lobola area, this, and just south of that area now, but it would be taking out a tree and the vegetation that's there, leveling it and putting this, big semi-trailer box with a generator there. So, a lot of the stuff that's going on the site, the Park District doesn't have a lot of control over because it's actually village property that's leased to North Shore Water Reclamation District. So the village has a lot more say over that. For the Park District, we have the property on either side. So for this, I said no. I said this is be a horrible location for our users, for our residents, and would really disrupt that area. And so I told them that, we're losing the use of the South Beach area, that they could put this down between the yacht club and the shelter on the beach, in that area. And so that's what they're exploring now. And they also, I think, mentioned whether they could put it up on top of the bluff, which I highly recommended that they don't even talk about that option.
This is all temporary placement, right?
It is temporary, but could be up to 18 months. I had like a porta potty and some barrels, up there for a week, and I was getting a call from, the resident across the street about affecting his view and reminding me what pet taxes he pays. So I think right now they're looking at that, option for the south. I think that, there's concerns about that, whether they'll be able to get to it, to be able to put fuel in it, during that 18 months. So we're gonna, be working with them on that, but we're definitely pushing back on that, as well as the access. They did not want to leave the access open to the beach, so they wanted to put, some barricades or stop the traffic, partially up, the access road there, and have all traffic, foot traffic, to use the path, which we are going to try to promote most of the access through the pathway. But, again, our concern was keeping that open to have have an ambulance be able to access the beach, to have our ATV that's there, be able to drive up and to get people that need to, that may be disabled and may have trouble getting down to the beach, that would bring them down, as we do now to some degree. That's about the only thing we do. We wouldn't be able to run them park down there next year. So, again, there was a lot of different options talked about, like cutting a new access road, kind of ramp so they could, get through there, which we didn't like. The contractor is concerned about, the equipment that's in and out of there, and the safety is, we all will be. It's going to be a very difficult, disruptive project. But at this point, it looks like, both the village and the park district are in agreement that the access has to remain open. As far as the actual, work that's starting, that may not be starting until March. Although they're starting to move some of the equipment down there now. I think you said that now you've seen some staging.
Correct, they were dropping in, forklift, some rental equipment, or some sort of trailer that was down there earlier when I drove past.
So, yeah, so it's, we're getting closer. The contractor said it is, he's still, working with that same timeline of being finished by Memorial Day of 2024. So that's, still, what everybody's pushing for, and that's definitely what we want to see happen. Even if they still have some work to finish at that point, then the beach, the South Beach can be reopened. So.
Do they have a timeline? I mean, because we were just talking about the odor here. Do they have a timeline for when they're going to be breaking into that storage tank and removing that? Because I would just imagine that's going to be a noticeable event.
Dangerous, maybe even smelly, yeah. Even like noxious, to not be around the fumes.
Is there one there?
What, the storage tank? Yeah, underneath the deck, that's what they're going to be taking out and replacing.
I think they're putting one in.
There isn't one now.
That was the backup generator.
Yeah, the backup generator.
There's pipes for storage tank, they don't be storage tank.
Okay, all right.
That's
So
why
there's nothing
that's
there to be.
No, but they're gonna have to, once, as they dig the hole, put in shoring and, try to secure, that area. So it's gonna be a dangerous, site, for them to work.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation about, as they were bringing the trailer truck, they dumped off a shipping container today, and as they were trying to maneuver, there were people walking down the road around this truck, and at some point, it's probably going to be a little dangerous to have people accessing. So I just wonder if there's any coordination about when they close, because as long as that South Beach is open, it's the most popular beach.
Yeah.
So I just think maybe from a safety standpoint, we make sure that
We did talk
we
with
get
them,
blamed for things that aren't beyond our control.
we did talk to them about, providing a flagger for, lots of it needed the top and bottom, but especially when it's gonna be heavier, traffic, when we're gonna have several trucks, coming in that they're gonna load, and where they park those. The problem is they can be idling in front of somebody's house for 20 or 30 minutes as they're waiting for their turn to come down there. So discuss,
But just
the
at some
routes.
point, when they decide they're, when you no longer want people access on the South Beach. I think
Yeah,
that-
they'll fence it off.
Okay.
They're gonna fence off the site, the construction site. But
Where
if
is that,
it's,
do you know where that fence is gonna start? Just, is it right at the end of the road, right there with the, before you even turn, right at the end of the big dip? Is that where the fence is gonna be?
yeah, we're trying to negotiate enough space because we would like to keep a dumpster and a porta potty down there as well. So we're trying to negotiate where that goes. But again, our district doesn't really have the say in that, but we're just trying to push back on what, our needs are. And, so we're hoping it'll be, somewhere around, like where the outdoor shower is now on the north side of the building. But I know the contractor's trying to take as much as they can get as well, so.
Yeah, because you have to have, if you need an ambulance, you need a spot right there. So you definitely need that area
Yeah.
open.
On a good note, I heard that the yacht club is gonna be using Great Lakes for their sailing.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that's good, so they do have
So they may have a
another
location, that's what.
or temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk, about, a little bit more detail about the, at the Park and Beach meeting, about the project and about our, operation this summer, what that's gonna look like, what we may or may not be able to do, and, we'll go into a few more details. So I'll provide the notes from our last, from that pre-construction meeting for the committee.
Is the Parks and Beach, if you're talking about the sailing programs and things like that, that are gonna occur? Okay.
Yes, as part of the operation for.
For Parks and Beach, okay.
Noah, was there anything else from the pre-construction meeting that,
No, I don't think we're covered.
any questions?
Very busy summer.
It's gonna be, I can see why this has been kicked down the road for 10 or 12 years. It's, gonna be very difficult, and disruptive for our residents, for our neighbors. Just have to keep in mind, we're gonna have some great facilities when we're done. We're gonna have some nice bathrooms, some nice outdoor area. We're looking much better down there. So I'm just gonna, ask for patience as we go through this and try to coordinate it with the village and North Shore, and ask the North Shore to, take the lead and making sure that they're informing our residents of things like the timeline, when it'll be closed or what they're doing, what steps, and also identifying this isn't a Park District project or a village project, this is North Shore Water Reclamation District.
We understand the intricacies of the fact of, it's the Park District, Sunrise Park and Beach, but the road isn't owned by us, and this particular segment of the beach isn't owned by us, so I think we're going to have a big hat and a big responsibility.
Well, I know we've talked about signage quite a bit. What do we land on as pertains to signage? Do we,
Well, I think
somebody making a sign, or?
We've asked them to, we brought it up again at the pre-construction meeting. They're doing a lot of the standard designs that you need to do for, job site and safety. But, we've told them about the one that we've done for, our project that had, more of with a rendering of what it was gonna look like, and, the timeline and, some of that information. So we've suggested that, we can't require it, but I don't know yet, they haven't committed to doing that, so.
Sorry, you said we cannot require it? Is that what you said?
Correct.
I'll bring some poster board to the next.
I think we should conclude that, get a conclusive answer from them as to what signage they're specifically.
Yeah, we should really push that, so that people know that it's not our project.
And then I think it would be nice to see a final drawing.
Yeah.
Because then I think people will be like, oh, well, bad right now, but it's gonna be beautiful when it's done, and if people see
Yeah.
that, it kind of softens.
Yeah, so they could use some of the renderings, like
Yeah.
what was in our package,
Yeah.
they've already provided from their landscape architect. That's what we did when we did ours, we took the drawing from our landscape architect.
And that was a big thing, having that sign out there.
Yeah, that was a
very positive thing.
I think you're right, it's like making sure that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get an answer.
Okay.
John,
All right,
get us-
I'll follow up.
And I'm gonna just go back again to just communicating, it's so important to the community, what we know, if you can communicate it to the commissioners, just update, whenever you get a new update on it, so that we can communicate that to citizens when they ask us.
Sure, so that's reasonable, you're probably getting the questions as residents and commissioners, so.
And social media too, what's going on with the beach, just, and then we can explain that this is not our project, this is what's going on,
Yeah.
if you have questions.
I don't know, for complaints, call.
They can even do like a website, they can put their website up on the, like for more information, go to this website or something.
I think I said that in the pre-construction meeting, that we're handing out their number, they ask, all commercial.
maybe those poor lifeguard staff down there who are going to have a lot of questions that they have to answer.
Yeah, that could be a difficult summer for our staff.
Yeah.
But man,
Yes, it will be, because they're going to have a lot of people who are going to want to
Sneak people over the fence.
see through the whole of the fence, bring paddleboards down there, do all different sorts of things. But the whole, no one's an exception. Safety is always first. All right, thank you very much. We had a lot of business to go through. I don't believe there's any community comments or correspondence that was attached to our agenda this evening, so, but yet we now have our email policy in place, which is very good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again to staff for the very thorough information that we had. Thank you, Scott, for your presentation, and hopefully we invite you only on special occasions coming up in 2023. And with nothing else on our agenda for this evening, I ask for